Welcome to the Kings Beat podcast. I am James Ham, Kings Insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. Joining me, Fox 40s, Sean Cunningham. Mr. Cunningham, how are you?
Doing good, gentlemen. Doing good. Good to see you, James. Good to see you, Brenden, again for the second time today. And excited to talk about exciting Kings basketball. Everyone's high, everyone's low. We're in a 3-game skid. Everything's fine.
Everything's fine. Nothing to
Calm
see
down,
here.
everyone.
Nothing to
No,
see
no, no.
here. And of course, joining us is Brenden Nunes from the Kings Pulse podcast. Brenden, how are you?
Doing good. My eardrums might need a second to recover, but doing all right. I'm on board with Sean. People need to calm down.
Calm down, everybody. Have a sip of tea.
Okay, I'll do
I
that.
feel like Kermit the Frog, the Kermit the Frog meme. Nothing to see here.
Do you have thoughts, James? Are you different than what Brenden and I are bringing to the table?
Absolutely not. I think this is one of those, it's one of those moments where the schedule caught up to them. The early season caught up to them. And, I've covered this team, but also professional sports and watched professional sports, my whole life. And I know that when you win 7 in a row, every once in a while you lose a couple right afterwards because it's kind of the balancing of the scales. And in order to win 7 in a row, a lot of times you mentally and physically exhaust yourself. And to me, that's what it looked like. This team flat out ran out of gas against Atlanta. They weren't able to recover against a really good Boston Celtics team. They made some mistakes late and against a Phoenix Suns team. So 3 in a row. But I think we'll dive deep into some of the interesting statistical things of the 3 in a row that I think make a lot of, I don't know if they make sense, but they tell you some stories. And I think that's, sort of like what today's podcast will be about. Okay, so if you guys are watching right now on YouTube, please, if you don't mind, give us a thumbs up. It helps with the algorithm. If you so wouldn't mind, give us a subscription here. Also, thekingsbeat.com. Go to thekingsbeat.com and become a premium subscriber of the Kings Beat. We're going to have a happy hour coming up, I think, next week. We got a thumbs up. We all got a thumbs up yesterday. But whether or not was that yesterday or the day before? I know these days run in together. I think it was.
No, it was yesterday at shoot around. Yeah.
Oh, it was shoot around. Okay. We
Yeah.
got a thumbs up from somebody that has promised to come on and be on the happy hour. But we'll have to make sure we have the date exactly right because it's one of the busiest people in the world. And we'll get to that as soon as possible. I'm excited about the happy hour. We've, during the season, it's really hard to squeeze these things in, and we do our best to do what we can. But I think this is episode 10. And the fact that we've been around for a little over a year and we're already getting up to number 10, that's pretty good because it's really difficult to land high-level guests and put these things together. So outside of that, let's dive into it. Do you guys have any other thoughts on is there a reason to panic at all? Do you see a reason, or do you just this is the schedule, this is the way it goes?
I think there's the only thing I would really panic about is that through what are we at 19 games?
Yep.
Almost 20th game will come up on Wednesday against a pretty interesting Pacers team, and that game, as even Harrison Barnes admitted today, won't be just like any other game because there's some storylines there and some emotions and tickets available too, by the way. I was just looking at that interesting person they had to market that game too with the selection of Miles Turner and not Buddy Hield or Tyrese Haliburton standing next to Domantas Sabonis, but I digress. I feel like when the Kings defense, for even little improvements that we've seen in various different times, they're certainly there. The defensive effort is sometimes there. If you were watching the Suns game, it was really hard to find. And it seems as if I feel my takeaway over the past week, and I kind of warned everybody, and it's not me being a smartass. It's just like, yo,
Sean
man,
warned all you all. And you didn't listen.
Well, I could have been a little more delicate, I suppose, but it's like 3 games in 4 nights on an East Coast trip. I mean, that's just absolutely brutal, especially around a holiday. And look, not making excuses, but you can kind of see some of these things coming. And I was grouping even in the Phoenix game. I was thinking to myself, man, if you can go 2-2, that would be really, really good because, maybe a 500 basketball team is what we're looking at this year, or maybe even slightly below, maybe slightly above. But 500, I think Mike Brown would be thrilled with, and you go 1-2, and then 1-3 really if you include the Phoenix game as well. But I don't look at much reason to panic at all because you're playing upper echelon opponents. This team knows its record against upper echelon opponents, against teams that are above 500 presently, against playoff teams last year, and I kind of like what I see. I mean, this team is kind of is what it is right now. Their identity, like it or not, is a high-paced, high-firepower offense, and even that's kind of dipped a little bit, maybe, but to be expected with 3 games in 4 nights and just some really incredible talent that they went up against. You went against the best in the East, and then you followed up with the best in the West with the Celtics and then the Suns. So, that's kind of my reason is to just say, just calm down, pump the brakes.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much agree with everything Sean said. I think that the Memphis win was a good one for this Kings team. What they held them to, I want to say it was 17 points in that third quarter. And then they held Atlanta to 18 points in the fourth quarter, but only scored 18 of their own. Like, the offense has slowed down, but they haven't been shooting well over these past 3 games, which I think is one of the last things I'm going to worry about with this Kings team. I think they have shooters, and the shots will fall eventually for Herter and Barnes and Murray. Like, I think those shots will end up going down, and I'm not really worried about the offense. Like, I think that there was progress in that Atlanta game on defense and that Memphis game. The Boston and Phoenix games, maybe not so much, but as Sean said, those are the best teams in their respective conferences. And I think it's just a little reminder that this Kings team we're talking about, like, I know everybody was riding a high, but we're not talking about one of the best teams in the West. Like, this isn't a team that's getting home court advantage in the first round or anything. These were going to be tough opponents for them. And I think that they gave themselves opportunities to come away in some of these games, except that Boston one, but they were in it for 3 quarters and then fell off in the fourth. Boston's been totally rolling. So I'm not overly worried. And I actually thought that there were little moments here and there that their defense looked better and slightly encouraging.
Yeah, I mean, look, if I'm really gonna break down, like, I went through and I looked at all of the main guys, right, over the last 3 games, of like their top 6 guys, because this roster really is shaping up to be like a pretty strong 6-man roster, and then you have some variance on what happens from 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes and everything else from night to night. So I'm just going to include Malik Monk in with the starters, basically. And if I'm doing that, I can tell you, like, of the starting 4, of the starting 5, 4 of them have been absolutely horrific the last 3 games. They have not been good at all. And I'll give Kevin Herter a little bit of a nod for shaking off the fact that he couldn't hit a 3 against the Suns and getting to the rim where he scored 18 points. I thought that was really impressive that he made an adjustment, but the adjustments from the other 3 guys haven't happened at all. And it's really brutal to look at some of the stats, but Herter's missed his last 13 threes. And so the last 2 games, he's 0 of 11. Harrison Barnes has taken a total of 3 3-pointers in the last 3 games. Total. He has missed all 3. And Keegan Murray is like...
Actually, James, hold that thought. How many shots has Barnes taken in the 3 games total altogether?
Well, like, I'm not sure total, but I can tell you that he is...
I'll find it.
Yeah, I can get it here in 1 sec. I'll tell you that Keegan Murray is 2 for 10 over the last 3 games from 3, and he's 6 of 24 from the field, and that's including a game where he went 5 of 11.
21 total shots for HB.
21, yeah.
21 over 3 games. And that even seems high because I didn't think he'd taken that many. And so, look, I think here's the problem: when your offense is completely predicated on a point guard that can slash, a big man who can pass, and then three guys who are supposed to be shooters, and those three guys stop hitting shots, you're pretty much cooked. And I'm going to blame it on fatigue and on their legs and all that stuff because that's a real life thing that happens. Guys start, the first thing that goes is 3-point shots. That's the first thing you lose. And to me, that's what it looks like. If you take away the ability for the guys to shoot, the spacing for Fox and Sabonis gets worse. And so they're not getting the same looks they were getting before. The fact that De'Aaron Fox, to me, looks beat up. And like we watched him, he said he was fine last night, but I watched him walk over to his locker, and he's like walking so gingerly, it's crazy. And then you guys go to practice today. I was on with D'Lo and Casey all day. Well, it was me and Damien because congrats to Kenny Caraway and his family. They just had a new little baby born over the weekend. Yeah,
so
we
great.
got baby Caraway.
Saw pictures.
Oh yeah. Absolutely beautiful little girl. You guys talked to you were there at practice today, and De'Aaron's limited, right? He's beat up. Like it is what it is. Like guys at the 20-game mark, like it's kind of like the third day of training camp. Everyone at the third day of training camp is like, "Where's the ice? I need the ice now."
Yeah, I mean, I think that we've also seen, like to your point, talking about the main six guys, I think that we've also seen them grow a reliance on those six guys, and they're playing a lot of minutes. Like it was really evident to me in that Memphis game. The Atlanta game, second night of a back-to-back after they were in Memphis. It's a bit of a flight for them, and then they just looked totally tired. The two guys that looked good was Malik Monk, who got ejected in the game prior, only played 19 minutes, and Trey Lyles, who hardly played the night before as well. And I don't think it's a coincidence those guys look good. Like, I think that, I mean, it's happened 3 games in a row now, so maybe outlier isn't the right word, but I still want to say that this shooting is an outlier for all 3 of those guys to go cold or kind of not even get the shots up in HB's case and Keegan to an extent. I just don't worry about that too much myself. Like, I think that those will start to fall. But they really do look tired, and I think a lot of it has to do with heavily relying on those 6 guys, and then it's kind of just spot minutes after that. And Davion's, I think, emerged into like a big part of the rotation as well recently.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm banging the same drum, but I just don't worry about this team offensively. I mean, obviously, if there was the things I kind of harp on the most is Harrison shoot the ball. Hopefully Domantas Sabonis can get to average 20 points a game. I'd like to see that, and Herter have more opportunity. I'd like to see that as well to hoist up more shots. I mean, Malik Monk is playing incredible right now, but I know we just spent a moment there looking at 3-point shooting and all that kind of thing, and it's warranted. I get it, but to me, it just all starts and stops with this team on defense. I mean, they're a sieve, man. It's just. It's really, really bad. Look, like they've got, again, I do see the strides they've made, but in I think, and again, Devin Booker is one hell of a player, and there were some instances where they made it tough on him, but I think for every moment I saw him just absolutely make an incredible shot, there were probably 2 others that was just so easy. Damon Lee just absolutely raining threes from beyond the arc with no one in front of him was crazy in the Phoenix game. Look, Phoenix is an incredible team, and they were without Chris Paul. Cam Payne has played really, really well, and he was kind of a non-factor in that game. So there's certainly these silver lining moments for sure, but to me with this team, it just always comes back to defense, and you're just hoping that they can make the smallest amount of strides because it will equate to big things, especially when this team, which is known as this firepower offense, as we've seen through 19 games, start to have games like they have recently where maybe that comes back down to earth a little bit. I also think that like we talk about it, you're not catching anyone by surprise anymore. And I think Mike Brown said it best before the game against Phoenix, which was, hey, teams are scouting us differently. We've shown that Sacramento's not going to be this rollover game anymore for a lot of opponents that are coming into the capital city and thinking that this is a lay down game, rest guys, whatever, and take it lightly. And to their credit, they've shown the ability to be competitive even among the league's best. So, but when I really analyze it, man, everything I see is just defensively, and it just continues to stick out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, I'll say this. Like, I get you on the defensive end, but I'm also going to say if the offense is efficient, then you get to set your defense, so that helps. If you set your defensive rating will improve. Their offensive efficiency has dipped in the last couple of games because they just, they haven't been the same without hitting shots. So, like, bad offense does lead to bad defense for sure, especially if you have the bad turnover games, which the Kings have had a couple of those where all of a sudden they're turning the ball over like crazy. What was a game where they had like 10 in the first quarter? So I think that would help on the defensive end. I know that Mike Brown said that they weren't going to let Devin Booker beat them at the end of the game, and then it was Damian Lee that beat them, right? And that was because they were sagging off to try to make sure that they took the ball out of Booker's hands. Booker got on a heater, and I think the stats, Will Z posted stats at one point, but I don't think he had a single quote-unquote wide-open shot. He had, most of his shots were, even if it was, close to wide open, like he was 4 of 8, but the rest of his shots were very well defended, and I thought you gave a guy who's a great scorer confidence, and then he made you pay for it. And, that happens all the time. But it happens more often to the Kings because guys already come in with an understanding that it's not a good defensive team. And so even guys like Kevin Knox starts hitting threes, or, Killian Hayes, who walked into that game as the worst offense player in the NBA and hits a handful of a pair of threes in the game. So, I think the defense is bad. I think they're making some adjustments that I think are good. And that kind of brings me to Mike Brown is still searching for that back end of the rotation, and having Trey Lyles go out due to illness was one thing, but we see this moment, and I know Brenden, you captured the moment. I was watching it and in real time as well, where Terrence Davis kept making mistakes on the defensive end, and Mike Brown not only called a timeout like he has 8 times this season because Terrence Davis has made a mistake on the defensive end. But he pulled him all the way out onto the court and sat there and had a coaching moment with him. Where are you guys at with that? Because I thought it was a bold move, but also something that had to happen. And then, of course, Terrence Davis responds. And not only does he make a big stop on the defensive end, but it kind of woke him up on the offensive end. It feels like Mike Brown, again, is coaching his ass off in most games.
I mean, I definitely agree. I'm a big Mike Brown fan at this point. I think that he's done a good job at enabling his guys and optimizing the talent on this roster. And I think that moment with TD, like he said before, that Terrence Davis is one of the guys that he feels like responds best to him being hard on him. And TD will say, stay on me, coach. I appreciate it. And I think that as much credit is deserved to Mike Brown in that situation. Like you said, it's happening in the open in front of everybody. He's obviously getting told that he was doing something wrong or what to do better, more so. And TD responded well and learned and then did it a couple plays later, drew a foul or drew a charge on Ayton. And coach went crazy on the sidelines, threw his hands up in the air, jumping around. TD smiles at the bench. It was a fun moment. But TD's a guy that does respond well to that. And I think that we've seen most guys respond well to how Mike coaches this team. I think he does a good job getting the most out of guys, really.
The defensive plays like that, it seems, I love watching the bench for reactions. Everyone's seen what it looks like when a guy hits a big shot, a crazy dunk and posterizes somebody. It's almost more impressive and more funny and more amusing when the way the bench responds for a defensive play. And that was peak Mike Brown with that celebration. I'll even rewind it a bit. Well, actually, I think jump ahead is when Chimezie Metu went out and was guarding Devin Booker. They were throwing a big at him, and Metu blocked a 3-point opportunity, and it led to a bucket on the other end. And then Phoenix calls timeout, and Mezzie's kind of pretty stoic as he walks back to the bench. He's high-fiving and everything. He gets to Leandro Barbosa. First of all, the bench had already blown up. Like, they all responded to that moment. Now he's walking back to the bench, and the bench is all hyped up. And Leandro Barbosa, he has a fun celebratory moment with him. I mean, it's just it's you can see that this team is taking on the personality of their head coach and the staff, because defense is such an emphasis, and it's being celebrated more so than the moments that might electrify a crowd, a big shot and and a big dunk or something like that. They're because it's so few and far between, they're really wanting to celebrate the moments of great defense when they happen.
Yeah, you know what? There were quite a few moments in that game of great. I mean, De'Aaron Fox had 3 blocks, including 2 like spectacular, one on a 3-point attempt and one on a jumper in the like middle of the key. I thought that those were good moments for him. But I also like, if you fast forwarded to that moment, I'll go back. Terrence Davis got blasted for a play. If you remember back in the first quarter, it's the same exact thing that they were telling Keegan Murray to do, because Keegan basically got in the way on an Ayton spin move and slapped at the ball and got a foul call. And it was because he didn't hold his ground and because he wasn't fully engaged in what was happening. But it's almost like the Kings knew that play was coming, and in order to stop Ayton, you've got to basically plug the middle of the key. And so I thought, like, again, the coaching that was in that game, you're going to face a guy who gets on a hot streak like that, and there's nothing you can do. And I didn't think the defense was horrific the whole game. I thought there are certainly moments where you're like, oh man, that was bad. But it's those little tweaks, and we keep hearing like the little things that they talk about. And someone asked during the press conference, what are the little things that you keep trying to bring up? And I think Mike Brown talked about some of them. And for a guy like Keegan, he's going to get yelled at just like Terrence Davis is for making the same mistake, because this team seems to be walking in with a pretty decent game plan, and whether it works out or not, really does depend. If someone goes goes nitro, like what we saw out of Booker. But overall, like, I think they are making some improvements. They are playing better together. This team isn't built to have a night where everyone starts missing their shots and everyone is like having an off night, right?
And I think your point earlier of, bad offense leading to even worse defense, like, their defense in the half court is bad enough that they can't make it even harder on themselves. And it's really those turnovers. Like, Booker, I thought they did a decent job containing him most of the night, but I thought early on, like, he ended the game with 6 steals. And Booker wasn't like being a crazy defender or anything. It was just lazy passes that were easy looks for him. And then I thought they let him get in a little bit of a rhythm. And then from there, you're just battling an uphill battle. Like, I mean, the fourth quarter, I understand the logic of get it out of his hands, because I think he already had close to 40 at that point. And you just hope that the other guys don't beat you and make quick enough rotations. And that's what ended up happening. But like, I thought it's those sort of details that the good teams will really take advantage of. And I think that's what we saw with Phoenix and Boston.
Yeah, and even the Booker thing you brought up, I think he had 6 turnovers too, right? Like, I think he had a big turnover game. But everyone talked about it like during the post game. It was those layups early on that got him going. And once he started to get confidence, you were pretty much done. And then for the Kings to not have their guy who usually plays that way, like, step up and play in those moments in Fox, who really just, to me, again, he was a step slow. That's what he looked like. He looked like he was hurting. I know this seems really random, but like, we've noticed the last 3 games that Fox is limping around a little bit. Do you think it has anything to do with the fact that like 3 or 4 games ago he switched shoes and then he switched shoes again? I don't know. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Because he's gone from In the last 4 games, I believe he's gone from, or maybe 5 games, Converse to Under Armour to the last game he played in New Balance.
New Balance, yeah. Those yellow New Balance. I had to look at them when we got in the locker room. I was like, "What are these?"
I know you were like, Sean was over there like, what are these? I think I have to have a pair.
No, I didn't want them. I was looking. I was like, "These are." I just had no idea what the hell they were. Yeah, it could, but I don't think that that's the problem necessarily. It's something worth monitoring, but yeah, I didn't even really. I think. I mean, for one thing, he's not going to. I don't think he's going to miss any games with this. He's going to try to play through it. I feel like he's had moments where he's drawn a lot of contact, especially when he's in the paint. But even last night, for a guy who didn't play well, he certainly tried to recognize the moment and do the typical fourth quarter Fox that we've come to see. It's just the starts have been really bad, and he shot really poorly, obviously. But I feel like this team is so much more well suited for whether it be Fox, Sabonis, like you almost don't need De'Aaron to score 30 points a game, 25 points a game, 20 points a game for this team to win games. You really don't. It's nice when he does, but as we've talked about, we've seen what this team can look like when things are clicking, and it can be somebody new every night. And we've seen them win games when Sabonis hasn't been the most effective on offense. We've seen games what it looks like when Fox hasn't. So last year, I wouldn't have said that. Last year, I was saying that, man, you really need. This is even before the trade for Fox. You really need De'Aaron Fox to score 25, upwards of 25 a night for this team to win. So, yeah, I mean, it'll be worth monitoring to see how the health is, but if he's sore. But I think they've just played a lot of games in a very truncated amount of time. Hasn't been much time off in between, and it's not getting any easier.
No, and he plays a really physical game. He's finishing around the basket over all these 7-foot guys playing through contact. He's been more engaged defensively, which involves a lot of physicality. Coach Brown is always preaching being physical on defense without fouling. So I think a lot of his shots in that Phoenix game were short, and that's kind of what we've seen recently, which I think is another sign of just kind of being tired and being limited at practice today just because of general like aches and pains. I think speaks to that. So I don't think it's anything to worry about. I mean, obviously he does need to bounce back here soon. Hopefully that Indiana game can be that. I know they say like first game back from a road trip is a tough one, and it doesn't help that you're against Phoenix as well. Indiana will be a good matchup. I thought it was interesting. I tried to ask De'Aaron if he was a little excited for the Indiana and game to see Bud play against Buddy and Ty, and he just said it. Not any more excited than I am any other game, and maybe that's because I asked prior to the Phoenix game. But I thought that was a little interesting. But I want to go back really quick. Why would the shoes be a problem? I feel like explain that to me, I guess.
Well, I mean that sometimes guys can get different shoes that that just are sore on their feet. It's just like anybody else, whether you're doing something active or even just walking. A friend of mine, actually, I'll give you a perfect example of one of the PR guys for the Kings, Avery Jacobs, was wearing a different canvas pair of shoes. They were Vans, and they were hurting his toe the way that they crease. It's Vans can be kind of difficult. Deck shoes can be kind of difficult as well for some people, especially around the toe. So, you go from different models. You're used to playing in a different shoe or a certain shoe for the majority of your career, and for De'Aaron, that's been Nike. So, he's a free agent. I don't think, to me, it doesn't. I don't think it's a foot injury with him or even sore feet. I just think probably a whole body ache. Just one of those.
Yeah.
He needs to get in a cold tub and just sit there for an hour. So rest and relaxation is going to be the best therapy for him. And unless when 5:30 coming up, well, we've got about 25 minutes until the injury report comes out, and maybe he's on it. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not saying, it's this is the reason, this is the reason. I'm just saying, like, look, it could be a contributing factor, the fact that he's pretty beat up over the last few days. Like, switching shoes is like a delicate balance. You never know when you'll get something that all of a sudden just, like, makes your body, like, hurt in a weird way, especially if you haven't worn, like, that style or brand of shoes in the past. not to like look for reasons or things that are standing out, but it does feel like the other issue is that if I've got four starters that all go like kind of like they all hit the skids at one time. I know it can be schedule. I know it can be because one guy sets up the other guys, or the other guys open spacing for the other guys. Like they can all have cause and effect. But this is also like we're getting to the point in the season where they have had a lot of practice time within the season. They have had, which is kind of strange. They have had a lot of games, but they also haven't had a bunch of back to backs. The only two back to backs they've had, to me, are their two worst games of the season where they didn't look good at all. Well, maybe not their two worst games. I think the Boston game was the worst game of the season, but that was the day after the worst game of the season, or 2 days later. Mike Brown is known for having like elongated practices and like even his shoot arounds, like they're an hour and a half, 2 hours long. Is there a potential for like a little bit of overuse at this point, and guys' bodies like hitting a wall and then like maybe bouncing over that wall like in the next couple of days, but at least maybe a little bit hitting a wall here physically?
I wonder about that myself. I've asked about it. I've also, during the time of the shoot around when they spent the silent practice going for 30 minutes or way longer than it was supposed to. I think those are certainly new, little annoying moments that have happened with some of these players who may not be used to that level of detail. But I think what's happened is I don't think these practices are really all that exhausting. I think in training camp, certainly with a lot of the running that you've seen, but I think so many of these practices and shoot-arounds have been a lot of teaching moments and a lot of film and a lot of walkthrough stuff that, not to say that they take it a lackadaisical approach, but I don't think they're the most physically taxing at this moment. I think they tend to be a little bit more mentally exhaustive than anything. And when you couple that with the trip you're just coming off of, I think certainly they've utilized days where in the past they might have used as a maintenance day or a complete off day, as opposed to come in and spend with the team and rather than just use a maintenance day or a rest or relaxation or rehab day to actually get some work in. And historically they may not have done that, and we've seen that last year. There wasn't a lot of practice time. There was literally game, and they were utilizing the pregame walkthroughs more so even than shoot-arounds. But I will say I think the shoot-arounds are things that have compounded it as well. A lot of these players who have been here in Sacramento didn't have a lot of morning shoot-arounds. So many times they would utilize that pregame walkthrough, and your schedule is a little bit different. But for me, it's kind of like what I said about Mike Brown when he first got the job. These are necessary. You're teaching these guys how to be professionals. This is professional basketball, and most teams come in and will do shoot-arounds and do practices and have this attention to detail, and that's why I thought Mike Brown would really benefit this team, because they haven't had a lot of that.
I mean, I think that you guys would have a little bit better perspective on what is and isn't a lot of practices. But to me, for just comparing to last year, this does feel like a lot, but not extremely so. I don't think it's vastly different in my mind. To me, it almost makes me wonder, like, is this just seeing that the Kings don't have good enough depth? And they don't have enough guys to help take the load off some of these starters or those top 6 or 7 guys. Like, it sounds crazy in a way, but like, would Trey Lyles have made a difference last night against Phoenix just for some depth? And he has his nights where he's decent out there, but I think that, if there was another reliable player that you knew you could get 20 minutes out of a night, that maybe that would help with this. So I'm not really sure about the practices. Like I said, I think you guys would have better insight on that, but it does make me think of the depth on the roster with how much reliance has grown on those 6 guys and then starting to be Davion as the 7th.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. Like, if we look at the top 6 guys and then we even throw in Davion, who's averaging, around 19, 20 minutes a game now, like, there isn't really another person who is consistently playing, eating a bunch of minutes. But I'd also point to the fact that Fox and Sabonis both are averaging around 32 minutes a game, not around 34, 35. I mean, if anyone's playing more minutes than they're used to, it might be Herter, who's at 32 versus like 30 that he averaged last year. But I think each of these players, it's within like the basics of what they have been as a player throughout their careers. It's not like the variance isn't great enough to like point to it and say, oh no, they're working more than they have been in the past. So I don't know. I mean, to me, it's intriguing. And this is just food for thought. I don't think we're like, I'm not throwing any accusations out there that Mike Brown has worked this team too hard and they've just run out of gas. That's not what I'm saying. But there are things that I'm kind of looking at and saying, okay, if I got 4 starters who just absolutely go in the tank 3 games in a row, maybe we should start looking deeper into what's happening. And the other thing with shoot around, which is Mike Brown's decision, but I think it's different, is that they never shoot around in the gym. They always shoot around at the practice facility. So they're never on their court. I don't know. Kevin Huerter is a much better shooter at home than he is on the road. So I don't think it really matters. But, I think it's something that's interesting as well because, like what Sean was saying, Luke Walton used to have like 4 o'clock walkthroughs, probably about, I don't know, 40 or 50% of the time. He still had some shoot-arounds in the morning, but they would close the bowl, so we're not allowed to like look down and see what they're doing because, of course, the Kings have magical secret stuff that no one else has ever seen before. And us reporters are going to report these magical things that they're doing during those walkthroughs. But like they would do a walkthrough from like 4 to 4:45. Like Mike Brown is doing a walkthrough, is doing a shoot around from like 10 to 11:30 on game days in the practice facility. So I just think it's interesting. And this team also, the other thing we've seen, they lift after every game. Like a good portion of these dudes are going into the weight room and hitting the weight room afterwards, and that's why we're not seeing them in the locker room until way later. So I don't know. Like the wear and tear, it's something you have to monitor. And I know that I've talked to guys about this that are in like the analytics field. There is no true test for like predicting injuries yet, but there are some measures that the Kings do to make sure that they're tracking guys. They track like, you guys have seen the jump boards, right? That there's a guy sitting outside the locker room. When a guy goes out to do his warm up, he jumps up and down like 4 or 5 times. When he comes back out, he jumps up and down, and it captures basically acceleration, deceleration off their leaping ability. And they track that every single day with every single player. They also do like measurements on like their ankle flexibility measurements, their knee flexibility, and they're tracking to make sure that they can't actually see where players are starting to like not have the same bend. They're losing their bend and stuff. So anyway, I think it's interesting, food for thought, just to like kind of get us through some of this pod. Outside of that, like we've had such a focus on Keegan Murray. Are you guys like, where do you think he's at? Because we've had conversations with him lately. I mean, clearly he's struggling. Clearly he's got the off court situation with his grandmother. There's been a lot of, like he hasn't looked like the player that we saw certainly in summer league or training camp, preseason, first couple of games of the season. But then again, he's a rookie, and like I don't have a ton of concern here, but I know a lot of people out in the world like seem to be on fire about concern for him.
Yeah, I'm not concerned with him either. I think it's just finding your way through defenses, not being scouted the same way. Maybe you're not able to get to your spots as quickly or as easier as you used to be able to. It could be, can't get the shot off as cleanly or as quick, or maybe as quickly or as slowly as you usually do. I don't know. I don't think there's much reason for concern. I do think that I'm still waiting for that game where Harrison Barnes and Keegan Murray both are productive on the offensive end. It just doesn't seem to happen yet. But Mike Brown has talked about how Keegan is being asked to do a lot. Same thing with Harrison Barnes, and so I feel just it's all kind of catching up, And I think he'll have a pretty breakout game at some point, be it a 15 or 20 point game here in the very near future. But he doesn't look like he's wavered on the confidence or composure element, which is to me the most encouraging sign. And for everything I know, I mean, the guy's healthy and acting as if the same as if he'd gone out and scored 40, which because he doesn't, he's just a guy that's just so mild mannered. So no one seems to be really worried about him from the team standpoint.
Yeah, Brendan, I'm going to twist that question a little bit. Mike Brown did say something that I thought it was intriguing. It was that Keegan's playing for a team that actually wins and losses matter, where a lot of his draft class is not. And so in that situation, you typically let a guy play through a bunch of mistakes and you're working with him along the way, but knowing that he's going to make a lot more of those mistakes. When you're playing for a team that has aspirations of making it to the playoffs and are in the hunt, you tend to he's going to have a much shorter leash in that situation. And I kind of buy that, but I don't know. Where are you at?
I totally buy that too. I mean, he looks like he's almost a little in his head. Like I felt like yesterday was one of the first times I think he missed a shot, and his body language almost just kind of put his head down, and it's kind of atypical for Keegan, I feel like. But I can only imagine, I mean, like you said, Coach Brown has a short leash on him because this team is expected to be winning games, and I'm sure that hurts your confidence when you do something wrong and get pulled right away. And you need to be able to kind of reestablish that confidence. And I don't think that the shot's not falling obviously hurts in that aspect as well. I think that defensively, he's recognizing the rotations. He's just a step late. And I think that recognizing them in the first place is typically a good thing. That's going to come around. I think that's typically one of the biggest adjustments for rookies. I thought Harrison Barnes' perspective was really interesting today of he pretty much said that everybody has up and downs. It doesn't matter if you're a rookie or you've been in the league for 10 years. And maybe this is just a down period for Keegan Murray. We've seen what he can be. I'm not worried about him long-term. I think he's a plus starter in the NBA for a long time. The ceiling might be a different story that we've talked about before. But I'm not worried about Keegan Murray. I think it'll come around, but I do think that he really needs a game that these shots are falling to kind of get him out of his head a little bit.
I also felt he was getting pestered, especially with the way Phoenix in particular was kind of roughing him up a bit. And to your point, Brendan, I may have read that situation a little bit different. When he was coming off the floor, I thought it was because he wasn't playing with the physicality and matching some of the physicality that he was being met with from Phoenix. That was just my read. And I think he was more frustrated with the style of play, and I think there was a frustration that he was being taken out of it as opposed to being able to work through it. But clearly there was a message that the coaching staff needed to get in his ear about, because I remember seeing what I think you're talking about, and I just remember thinking right before that, boy, he's getting kind of roughed up, and they're playing him a little bit more handsier than I had seen in previous games.
Yeah, I mean, I thought I saw him slump a couple of times, and I was like, that's not great. You can start seeing the confidence be a little bit of an issue. But at the same time, look, the Kings, they drafted a player who has a very unique skill set. At the college level, he was I think it's 97% or 98% of all college players in the post. And that's including 7'2" dudes who are dunking every single time. This is a guy who's really, really good around the basket. And the Kings haven't asked him to do that. And actually, they tell him not to do that. They tell him to get away from there, because that's where Sabonis runs, and that's where Fox finishes. And so you've taken one element that is in his comfort zone and taken it away. And then he's almost become just a 3-point shooter in a lot of situations. And that's not who he is as a player. So he's trying to have to find himself and readjust and rethink about who he is as a player. And I think for a lot of times I can see the wheels turning in his head. And then when the Kings gave him like the opportunity in this last game to go down there and go get like 3 easy buckets at the rim, first of all, he needs to dunk the ball. Like what Mike Brown said about, like you're giving players too much respect and you need to go in there and hammer a ball, which is what he said over the weekend when I don't think any of the three of us were there at practice. But like then I watched it and he got 3 guys down low and they were layups where he went up and like gently set the ball in the basket. Like go give me a hammer dunk. Go get something that like gets yourself pumped up, that like shows that you're in it and that you're being aggressive and that you want it. And so those are things where I kind of see like I don't buy that there's no confidence issue. I think there is a confidence issue, at least a little bit. And I'm not saying like he's lost all confidence, but I see like a player that's teetering a bit, who needs to have a big game to like wake himself up and stabilize. But also like he's not been a good rebounder. He's not done some of the other things that he did really well at the college level. And so there is some concern that like, look, man, if you can't, it can't just be about scoring. You got to do other things as well. And this team is a really good defensive team. I mean, it's a really good defensive rebounding team, but that doesn't mean he can't go get some of these rebounds because he's not. And so like the physicality of the game seems to be the biggest issue because I think rebounding is a big part of that whole physicality issue anyways. So there's just my thoughts. Like I'm not overly concerned. I think he'll snap out of it and find himself at some point. But like the fact that the Kings don't really have another option is a bit concerning, and that they don't have another player that they can really turn to.
Well, and he's look with respect to the analogy of college. I mean, he's playing against big boys here. There's the size is so much bigger, the speed is so much faster, and he's playing just frankly a completely different role. He's not this do everything workhorse. It's playing a specific role, and sometimes it's standing in the corner. How do you react to coming away from the corner? Like someone like Miles Bridges, someone like Miles Turner does a lot, especially if you watch film where Domantas Sabonis was playing along Turner and the way he was able to stretch the floor. Can you play that role? And even if you do become this 3, you don't have to just stand out at the perimeter the entire time. So it's how he navigates that. So I think these are part of the growing pains. And to Mike Brown's point, this is different because you're not setting up so many things to set the table for your rookie like you do in Orlando, like you might be doing in Houston or in even in Detroit. You're this play style is pretty equal opportunity, but you're playing a specific role, and you're really like the 3rd to 4th guy on the team when it comes to offensive scoring threat. So. And I'm with you, James, on the rebounding thing. What's that, 5? Yeah, probably
he's the
5th.
I mean, the starters, he's 4th. I
mean, Malik
5th.
Monk. My goodness, the way he's playing on the scoring aspect right now, especially off the bench, is everything I had imagined, but more so. I thought this guy would be very much a microwave Vinnie Johnson, but the way he just comes in, and obviously the playmaking is there, but I'm telling you, I know I'm shifting gears here, but Malik Monk and Domantas Sabonis have the best 2-man game on the team, and it's like not even close. I mean, the guys just there was in that first half when Malik came in and they left Sabonis out there, they ran the same screen and roll every single time, and it was effective. I mean, they got buckets out of it. It was really impressive.
You know what, Sean, though? Like you could say that, and I would say, well, I prefer the Kevin Huerter and Sabonis 2-man game. And then Brenden could go, ooh, I like the Fox and Sabonis 2-man game. I mean, I think the catalyst here is Sabonis, which, again, like the fact that guy doesn't have a triple-double yet is nuts. Like how many times he's come so close. But, yeah, I get what you're saying about Monk. And to be honest, like over the last the last 3 games at least, it's been Sabonis and Monk carrying the team for a good portion of the game. And then, again, Davion, I think, has brought a spark off the bench, even if he's not scoring. he has brought like an energy that's different, and in the Phoenix game, I thought he was tremendous, and I actually thought he was not at all happy that he came out of the game late, and I think he like even ignored you, Sean. Like he didn't want to talk to you after the game, which I thought was interesting. Not you specifically.
No.
He didn't want to talk to any of our
No, he
athletes.
didn't.
He wanted to like get the heck out of there. But I don't think he was happy that he came out of the game late, in favor of De'Aaron Fox, who wasn't having a good game, and he thought he was having a good game.
He was having a good game.
No offense. No offense taken.
No, he was having a good game, and he's been having good games, I think. I mean, we talked about the defensive struggles of this team. He's the one guy outside of KZ Okpala who doesn't do enough offensively to get consistent minutes. We've seen him try recently, and I think he's actually been okay on offense, but I think that Davion obviously is somebody that's part of this rotation, and he comes in and changed the energy on the defensive end. There's been, I feel like, multiple times he draws offensive fouls in each of these last few games. He's great at fighting through screens. There was one loose ball last night that he's diving on the floor at half court. Like, his energy, I think, is infectious and been really good for this team. And I did expect them to close with Davion last night, and not in favor of De'Aaron, but I thought that maybe it was a debate with Malik. And originally Malik did get pulled, but then he went right back to the scorer's table and then got HB. And then HB ended up replacing Davion. I thought they might even just go with a small lineup for a minute. It looked like Coach was kind of trying to figure out the best way to go. And I kind of asked him about the lineup post game, and he said that pretty much he went with HB over Davion for offensive purposes, and still felt like HB was doing an all right job on Book. But I think Davion's been much improved recently. I'd like to see him get more minutes alongside Fox. And Malik is just doing what he does. I mean, and like Sean said, and everything and more, like 30 and 8, I think it was last night. I've been shocked at his passing. Like he said that he's always been a good passer, and that now he's just getting an opportunity to showcase that. And he thanked Mike Brown for that. I'm not sure, man. He's a crazy passer, and I just didn't quite realize the extent of it. His acrobatic finishes are amazing. I've never seen somebody do so many like reverse layups with English on it. Those two guys, I feel like, have been really good off the bench for the Kings recently.
Yeah,
That up and under in that game, like, it happened like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, we early in last season, I remember thinking that it was Fox and Haliburton and no one else on the team could pass. And it, like, straight up. Like,
Because they didn't. Yeah, they couldn't.
Well, they didn't, and you're right. Maybe they can't, but the year before, Harrison and Buddy had both averaged career highs in assists. The next year they come in, and both of them shaved like an assist and a half off of their averages on the season. Rashawn Holmes is not a natural passer. So you got to this point where it was like, man, it's only these two guys. If one of them steps off the court, you're totally screwed. Like, if both of them are off the court, you're done. You have no one to handle the ball. And now all of a sudden it's like you've got Fox, you've got Sabonis, you've got Monk, you've got Herter. Like, all of these guys can really pass. You've got Davion. Even like Davion as a young player wasn't ready to be a passer at all last year early in the season. I'm still not sure that he is right now. He's had some pretty nice passes himself, but not enough to like register. I think he's averaging around like 2 assists a game. But even like that, I mean, talk about a crazy stat. The Kings didn't play well offensively. They couldn't shoot a 3 at all. They had 32 assists. They had 22 assists in the first half.
22 at halftime, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was absolutely crazy. So it doesn't feel like they're that far off. And anyway, okay, let's switch gears to our. We're not going to do Tuesday overreactions.
Thank God.
You know what? Maybe
I think we already did,
Tuesday.
right? Oh, here we go.
No, but we will do the business of basketball. We've got a game. We've got a game. First of all, Brenden, do you have plans to meet up with Tyrese Haliburton before the game and talk about his defensive prowess this season?
No, I just hope that he, has a horrible game defensively, and then I can give him a hard time afterwards.
Oh, yeah, that would be nice. Sean, are you looking forward to Buddy wearing his Halloween costume like Jason Anderson is?
Dude, no. No. Never. I'm looking forward to seeing both those guys for sure. And I think that building should probably sell out. There's plenty of tickets available though, but hopefully we'll see an amazing atmosphere in there. I don't think that we'll see. I wonder if we'll see someone booed every time he touches the ball.
Boo or no boo?
No.
They should not. They shouldn't. And we were talking about that with.
I agree. They shouldn't.
I mean, here's the thing: introduced, give them a yay, clap, show them their due to both players, really, and then sure, if you want to boo the hell out of them, I mean, it does create a little bit of a home court advantage. I love it. I do like it, but I don't know if you need to boo them every time they touch the ball. That's like with Marvin Bagley. That was pretty crazy. Even Harrison Barnes was talking about that today. Like he didn't expect some of that stuff to happen, but also, yeah, I know people are still in their feelings when they hear Tyrese Haliburton on the JJ Redick podcast, and he's a regular on that show. I don't blame Tyrese Haliburton for feeling the way he does. I think as a athlete, you should use that as motivation, and I think fans should know he's not talking about your city when he's talking about your organization. And
no, he's flipping off the general manager and assistant general manager.
Yeah, it's fine, and ownership. To be honest, like it's all part of it. That doesn't mean that he's this like flippant, disrespectful kid. Like, no, but like you should feel that way, right? Like it's not like you were traded at the back end of your career and now you're going to go, enjoy your remaining years of basketball. No, man, this is a guy who came to Sacramento and everything that he thought it was going to be was dashed in a year, and it's because you were so good. It's because you were wanted, and you were at both teams. Like that's kind of the ironic part about it is like if you had to pick a winner of the trade, I mean both teams really got better. I mean, they just really did. And he's putting up some incredible numbers right now. And so is Sabonis. Like, I think it both needed a fresh start. I think both teams right now, almost a year later, are super thrilled with where they're at in having both of these players. And he should feel that way.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Like, I talked to Damian about this on the radio today, and is there a more like polarizing singular contract than Buddy Hield's? Like when he signed it, everyone, including guys like I remember Zach Lowe saying, "Oh, what a great deal they got for Buddy Hield." Buddy Hield was so angry that he didn't even want to play basketball anymore after that deal. He was pissed that he didn't get more money. By the end of the first year, he was one of the worst contracts in basketball. No one would touch him. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they paid Buddy Hield that much money. Then, magically, they go to trade Buddy Hield for Kyle Kuzma and Montrezl Harrell, which I'm still not sure that trade was ever even remotely close to real. But if it was like, that doesn't make any sense. So you would think that, his trade value, I know it was close, but his trade value goes like, you would think he's worth so much now. No, that was the only deal out there. They couldn't get rid of him at all afterwards. It was like, okay, there's not another deal to trade you. And then now we don't even hear about it.
Not another deal that made you better, right? Like you weren't given. I mean, this isn't a guy that you're putting on
another deal that you could without taking back a bad contract. You couldn't.
Well, that's my point. Like you're not going to do a deal just to. It's not addition by subtraction. And I know there were some people, in my opinion, who showed their ass by saying that. I don't think you're talking about one of the most elite shooters in the league. Granted, he doesn't play like that on that team, but he's playing a pretty decent role with where he's at with the Pacers right now.
He's good.
And I think that's what I'm saying. Like, I think everyone would sign up to have that version of Buddy Hield. It's just unfortunate that what Buddy Hield was in Sacramento for his last 2 years, especially under a coach that wasn't a good fit for him. I'll just say that. They were having Buddy Hield do stuff that you shouldn't have Buddy Hield do. Simple. It's just simple.
Yeah. Buddy Hield was getting assigned to Devin Booker. And
bad idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not
And
very well.
Buddy Hield by, as James mentioned, like, yeah, he had the most, like, he had to add playmaking to his repertoire by default because there was none. Like, him dribbling the basketball is not really what you want.
Was
You
that
really
a
don't
coach
want
though,
that.
or was that like roster?
It's
or anything
it's both.
I think
it's
it was
both.
everything.
It's
Yeah.
not it's not having a high basketball IQ. It's him wanting to do what's best for the team. He's always trying to be a good teammate. I know fans don't want to hear that because it's just easy to sit there and again, especially when you traded a franchise centerpiece at the time for him and all that stuff. Like, it's just tough. It's a tough fit, but he never. Those were some very, very frustrating times, and I get it, but yeah, tomorrow should be fun.
I think that also with his, like, we're going to continue to see the Buddy Hield contract conversation kind of evolve because it is a declining deal, and it's 20 million this year, 18 the year after, and that's the final year. And it was always going to be the case that once you got that down to this last one or two, like, then it's easier for a team to take on that contract and add Buddy. So I think that we're going to continue to see the evolution of that deal.
Okay.
I mean, by the way,
Yep.
like, with Duncan Robinson's making 90 million.
Oh no, that's
But one bad
yeesh.
contract doesn't justify another.
Well, I'm just saying, like, it just shows you what a premium shooting is in the league, right? Like, Buddy's contract was actually pretty incredibly done with all these escalators that could have happened. Like, Buddy was rather reluctant, as James mentioned, and it was true. Like, he wasn't making an all-star team. He wasn't. Playoffs were not in the realm of possibility at that time because the team wasn't good. I've seen worse contracts out there, man.
Oh no, there were. You mentioned. Okay, so what's your favorite Buddy Hield moment? Like, because like you had, because we'll do this with you with Ty, because you didn't spend that much time with Buddy, right?
Not too much, no. And they didn't give us him at media very often when I was there.
Yeah, I don't think so. What was your favorite moment with Buddy? Like, there's some ridiculous moments with Buddy Hield.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I liked interacting with Buddy, man. Like, I really did. I would say among my favorite things is like, I just don't understand why you go by Buddy when your name is Shavano. I think Shavano is an amazing name, and so I'd always, anytime he did something amazing, it's like, it's Shavano, Rainier, Hield. And, but there's Buddy and then there's Shavano, and Shavano was like when Buddy was really, really good. So,
Okay,
cool Buddy, you call Shavano. Bad Buddy, you call Buddy.
Do you remember why his name was Buddy?
Yeah,
It's a
it was
phenomenal
like
story.
It was like the dog, like something like about a dog.
No, he's named
No, I
after Bud on Married with Children. His mom,
Is that what it was? No, I
his
remember there was a
mom
dog
loved
thing,
Married
dog
with
story too.
Children.
Yeah,
And Bud Bundy, she started calling him Bud Bundy. Well, Bud. But she couldn't call him Bud because there was a drug dealer on their block named Bud.
Oh, that's
so
right,
she started calling him Buddy. And so that's why he was Buddy. My favorite moment was the day I had to go ask him, Buddy, are you 25 or are you 26? Because you said it's your 26th birthday on the air and it's supposed to be your 25th birthday. By everywhere, ever, you're supposed to be 25 years old. Oh no, I'm 26. Like, what exactly? I don't know how it happened. I'm like, wait, what do you mean? You just literally picked up an extra. So 1 year he went from 24 to 26 while he was with the Sacramento Kings, which
that's a lot of life.
I had to break that story that went viral. You're like, really, buddy? You just aged a year. And yeah, I liked Buddy. I liked having him around. He was fun. As a basketball player, there were moments which were like exhilarating, like his walk-off win where he was running all over the court after they beat was that the Lakers shot?
He beat the Nuggets in Denver and ran and he hurdled that cable. That was pretty funny.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking. It was Bogdanovich who beat the Lakers.
I like the when that whole training camp when he was in negotiations for the contract and him and Vlade in the moments that they'd have, he'd just look over him. He'd always do this to Vlade, and then he's in that open fan scrimmage, open to the. I got it on video, and it's like he hits this he hits this shot, and he goes and looks at him, and he just does the whole money thing to him, and it always amused me. But yeah, it didn't end very well with Buddy and the Kings. So
different cat. Now,
man.
Brenden, you had some moments like in your first year as a reporter with Tyrese Haliburton that were totally different. Like, I think that like it helped you break in. Like, it was a big moment, but it also got you comfortable and like helped you like ask more questions and all that stuff.
Yeah, it definitely did. He called me out for making the question that I asked Luke was super rookie move of me about like, you're hiding Tyrese and then blah, blah, blah from there. Like no coach is ever going to say they're hiding a player. And I know that now, but didn't know at the time. And Ty obviously heard and then started commenting on it. And yeah, I mean, just the fact that he took it as and kind of went in a playful direction with it. I think did a lot for me. Like you were saying, like it made me a lot more comfortable. It could have been a very different scenario and way he went about that. And I think it's just kind of speaks to Ty's personality. I mean, even just at shoot-arounds and practices, like just getting to hear him in that environment and everything, he was always, I thought, pretty up-spirit and similar in a way to like Malik Monk now. If I can stand anywhere, I'm trying to stand near Malik Monk and overhear that conversation. I think Tyrese was kind of the same sort of way. So I hope that it's cheers for him tomorrow. I would expect that it would be. I tend to think the people that are agitated on him are probably vocal minority, but we'll see what ends up happening. It's definitely going to be a fun one, and hopefully him and De'Aaron have some fun back and forth, and Davion as well.
Yeah. Oh, Davion for sure. I mean, Davion's gonna. You might foul out of that game if you remember that sit down when they were supposed to go. My sit down with them when they were supposed to go oppose each other during the rookie sophomore game, and he's going to try and foul out of that game to show that he was really competing. I think Davion's really going to look forward to that game. Tyrese Haliburton might be one of the most charismatic athletes you'll ever meet in professional sports. And I've been doing this a long time. I mean, that guy's a Hall of Famer in the media game. So there was nobody more pissed off to see him leave selfishly than I was, because for one, it screwed up my interview. And for second, like it took one of the few beacons of light around this team away. He was fun. He was community oriented. Show up at high school football games. He would do stuff. He would,
got a bunch of people to buy Top Shots
and lose their money. He got a ton of people. Like, I mean, he'd know he'd have great T-shirts that he would wear that would speak to little pop culture references or things that were popping off on social that was surrounding the team. He had nice callback to the heritage of the team, and the guy wanted to be here. It was everything you want, man. He could play, but even if he couldn't play, it's like, boy, you hope he could be good, because you just don't ever want him to lose that spark and that drive. And yeah, I had so many, the crazy part was like, because of the pandemic, James, we didn't get to meet Tyrese Haliburton for almost a year.
Yeah.
And my first time meeting him was in Vegas at Summer League. And the year after his rookie season, the summer after his rookie season. So it was really like his sophomore year was like being a rookie. And it was a lot of fun. A lot of fun that he had here. I think he had a very good impact on the organization for sure. And it didn't work out. I'm not convinced that it wouldn't have worked out, but it just didn't. And people always wonder why they traded him. I think that's simply a mathematics, economics, business type of move where, of course, Indiana's going to want him. You've got team control. He doesn't make anything. And if you compare that to somebody like De'Aaron Fox, who already has a max contract, well, you're going to go Tyrese Haliburton all day.
It always comes down to this. Like Monty was brought up in the business that you never overvalue your own assets. You look at them for who they are, and you try to prognosticate who they can be, and then you make a trade or whatever. They traded a guy who was averaging 14 points and 7 assists a game for a two-time All-Star 25-year-old center. And that's it. And for that matter, when they did that, it also freed up cap space. It allowed them to take another asset from that trade in Justin Holiday and package him to go get Kevin Herter. So you can actually look at the deal as like a much broader deal, because losing Buddy Hield's contract was good for the franchise. Losing Tyrese Haliburton was not. Gaining Sabonis was. Having the ability to go get a guy like Herter just made a lot more sense. And so, I mean, at the end of the day, I think both teams did really, really well in the deal. And like, that's all you can say. Like, that's what you hope for every trade, that everyone gets a good deal. And I'll second what Sean said. Like, there's only been 2 players to ever come through, like pre-draft or anything else really, that even it's CJ McCollum and it's Tyrese Haliburton. Like, they stand out so far above everyone else. They just get it. They get all of it all the time. And like, I don't think it's fake or disingenuous. They literally are just intrigued by it, just like we are by them, and they're all in. And so he was a great dude to cover. And I'm really glad that he had the relationship that he had with you, Brenden. Like, that really, it like opened doors. Like, it did. It was fun. And it was always like, waiting for what kind of like witty retort he's going to throw your way during a press conference or whatever. And he never took it personal, even though it was like a jab at him, even though you didn't intend it to be. He never took it really personal and like held you like blasted you for it, which I thought was really, really cool.
He was committed to the bit, much like Buddy Hield was with Jason Anderson.
Yes.
And that might have been my favorite interaction. And sometimes, if you were ever able to find those moments on the full videos that I would post online, those were
you still smoking, Jason? That's nasty.
That's nasty.
He would mess with Anderson all the time. Yeah, it was back and forth. Yeah. All right. Let's see. Do we have any final thoughts? I think we're just about done, because I've been sitting in this stool for most of the last 6 hours.
I don't really have anything. I'm excited for tomorrow. I think that either Buddy Hield is going to go crazy or maybe shoot his team a little out of the game. I feel like Buddy's a guy in my mind that is going to go in there and try to prove a point. I expect Ty to do the same. Ty's been playing amazing, and all of Indiana has been really good recently. So I don't think that it's quite the matchup I expected it to be, with Sac being like heavily favored, how I would have thought coming into the year. It should make for a fun game.
Yeah.
Sean?
I'm surprised no national TV for this game, right? Like, this is a not even an NBA TV game, right? Or is it?
I don't think so. Not
It's
that I know of.
not.
Little surprising to me. I know we give Brenden a lot of shit for not seeing movies and stuff like that, so I want to throw out a movie that I saw, in case anyone saw, because I was really looking back. Like, we're getting into like Oscar, like right around this time, like all the greatest movies come out and everything like that. Vengeance, if you haven't seen it, it's on Peacock. Go watch it. BJ Novak, really, really good movie. I think it might be one of the best movies I've seen all year. So,
Ooh. Okay.
Yeah.
I saw Glass Onion this weekend.
Yeah.
I was entertained. It was different.
I got to see the Knives Out, the sequel.
Oh, you've never
I'm
seen
looking forward
Knives
to
Out?
that. No, I saw the first one. I got to see the.
Well, that's the
see
Glass
second
Onion.
one.
That is, yeah.
Oh, that's what that is?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought it was just like Knives Out, like part 2 or some shit.
No,
like
no,
that.
it's
I didn't
Knives
know.
Out, the Glass Onion.
Horrible movie knowledge, Sean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
together.
That's bad.
Come
Get it together.
Bad job on me.
The cast
By the
is
way-
incredible. Like,
I was a little disappointed that no one brought up our coaching session that showed up in the run.
oh yeah.
Thought we'd see a little bit more of that. I thought we were actually going to get like a portion of the video that we could put on social, but if that was all it looked like was me putting my hands on Mike Brown, and that was really it. I like my forearm. So,
Well, I'm glad they didn't post my missed layups.
oh, see, that's what I was really hoping
See, I had 2 missed
for.
layups.
Was stuff like that.
Out of, I think, the only 2 shots that were taken. Well, someone
No,
might have.
there was one more shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's man of you to admit that, though.
Who?
That's-
What? My bad layups?
Yeah, well, yeah, because a lot of guys were out there just like talking about how great they were, and
No.
you mentioned
I've never been
that's
able to
good for you.
be a good layup man. I'm a horrible offensive player. No, but I set mean picks and I play defense. Well, I did. Like, there's nothing left in this body. Fuck. that ain't happening. There ain't no media pickup game happening with this.
I tell
body.
everyone, no media pickup game. I was a baseball player and a shitty football player, so I'd never claimed to be a basketball player at all. Also, by the way, the run, we were just talking about how awful like the scheduling is for these professional athletes. But shout out like Miguel Lopez and Lucas O'Connell, the equipment managers with the Kings. They do an incredible job, and those dudes, they don't get paid like these athletes do, and they work about 10 times as much. Like, I was talking to Miguel, and he gets some FaceTime, him and Lucas both, in the most recent version of the run. So if you haven't seen it, go check it out, because those guys are like a lifeblood to an NBA team, and they got two good ones. So
Sweet.
shout out Miguel and Lucas.
Yeah. All right. Final thoughts from me. I don't know. Oh,
You're sore.
go Team USA. That was fun today. Team USA knocked off Iran 1-0, and that was a heck of a game. Iran had a bunch of shots late, and that was an aggressive, physical, really fast team. And I thought that USA would have trouble. I thought USA would lose to them after watching Iran versus Wales. But yeah, made it to the second stage of the FIBA World Cup.
So what's that mean? What's next?
It's a knockout stage. So
We don't know who they have yet?
They made it out of group stage?
Yeah, they made it out of
Officially?
group.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Them in England?
Yeah, England is number one. They're number two coming out of the group stage. Yeah, they play. Oh no, I want to say.
I should know this, but I've been at Kings all day. But yeah, I mean, Fox 40 is the home of the World Cup, so I should know this stuff. We've got a lot of stuff that they've been doing over there before and after the game. So, by the way, if you haven't checked it out, it's probably on YouTube, on the Fox 40 YouTube. But if you're a soccer fan, Republic coach Mark Briggs was incredible breaking down the World Cup for us afterwards. If you're a soccer fan, go check it out. I wasn't watching it. I had seen a portion, and I had about 3 friends text me right out of the gate saying how awesome it was. So they're not even Republic fans, or one of them is. 2 of them weren't. So
yeah, I'll look at that. I definitely
Netherlands, by the way.
Oh, Netherlands. Yeah, there we go.
not the nether regions. Just make sure we understand it's the Netherlands, not the nether regions.
Not the. Yes.
Can you remember the movie? I can't remember the movie.
I can't.
It's a good one though.
Netherlands. That should be a tough matchup. But at this point, all of the matchups are tough. I love watching soccer. I love World Cup. I was in Europe one time for Euro Cup. That was a blast. Although we were in Belgium and the hooligans trashed the city, so everywhere you went there, they had to call in the National Guard. There are dudes with machine guns everywhere. Yeah, so it gets a little it's a little emotional over there. And there is no lighting the beam, and everyone feels good. They lose and stuff gets broken.
Jeez.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, I think that's going to do it for this edition of the Kings Beat podcast. If you're still watching, please give us a thumbs up. If you're listening somewhere, give us a rating and review, whether it's Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Outside of that, we've got become a premium subscriber to the Kings Beat. We're gonna have a happy hour. I think it's gonna be next week, but it's dodging, trying to pin this one down is never easy. So we'll figure it all out. So for Fox 40's Sean Cunningham and Brenden Nunes from the Kings Pulse podcast, I'm James Ham, Kings Insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. We'll see you later this week.